Are you someone in your late 40s, early 50s, a Gen Xer who is starting to notice that maybe your parents might not be able to live on their own anymore? How do you recognize the signs? That's what we're talking about today. Come on, let's go. Today, we are talking about how to recognize signs that your parents might not be able to live on their own anymore. My name is Allison Newland. I'm the broker owner of Platinum Properties of Florida in the greater Tampa Bay area. And I'm here today with two of my friends and colleagues, Julie Cook of Generational Transitions and also Nikki Flynn with Elite Preparation Services. And we all work together in tandem to try and help Gen Xers like myself with their aging parents. And so today we are talking about how to recognize the signs of, oh my gosh, mom and dad might not be able to live on their own. And I'm going to just go ahead and give this right over to Julie because she is an expert at this. Julie?
So that's such an important moment and something to recognize. So I'm going to backtrack just for a minute and
Please.
start with when you notice that there may be an issue with mom and dad being at home or mom or dad if there's only one parent in the home. The first things many Gen Xers will want to do is say, I'm going to take care of them myself.
Mm,
They cared for me. It's my turn to take care of them. And that is a beautiful thing. However, to consider, if you work full time, if you have
mhm.
kids and you have activities, one of the considerations is the safety of your parents, and you're not home very much. So while it's wonderful in theory, it's important before you take on this big responsibility and build a casita in the back of your yard and all of this to think about the reality of, am I really available enough to take care of my parents now and as they get older, like I would like to? Second thing to consider is, when is it time? Maybe it's not good for them to live alone. Oftentimes, if you have two parents, one of them becomes the primary caregiver. So maybe one has a lot of needs that they're dealing with. The other one is trying to help because they desperately want to stay together and they're getting exhausted and they're getting worn out. The good thing to know is that they can stay together. If you're looking at a senior living community, even if parents have two different care needs, maybe one is completely independent, one needs a lot of help, no problem. You can stay together. That gives you peace of mind that if you're still blessed to have mom and dad both in your life, they can stay together. They don't have to be separated just because of care needs.
That is, I know that they're actually, I talked to some people that bought into this facility. You probably know where it is. I think it's somewhere in the Palm Harbor area where they start as just a 55 plus, and then it goes all the way to skilled nursing care, like the whole thing. So they didn't have any children, so they went ahead and bought a, you know, package there. I think that was fascinating to me because I didn't know that existed. But of course it does. I just never thought about it. And I think that's what someone like me, I'm going through my life. You know, my kids are almost grown and flown, right? I've got one more going out to college. Now time is going to really start to free up. Maybe we'll be able to travel a little bit and whoo, the brakes get put on because now I've got to deal with some other stuff. And I think that's what Gen Xers are going to have coming at them that they don't realize. Like now their parents they expect us to help them. And I don't mean that in a bad way. They just think that we're smart enough to figure out how to take care of them the way
Yeah.
that they need to be taken care of. That sounds terrible, but we're not expecting it. We're not really thinking about it. Maybe we're not having these conversations about it, but it all happens very suddenly. And so some of the things that people should be on the lookout for, the indicators. And by the way, we do have a nice little indicator list. It's a short list, but I'll put it in the description below with all of our contact information. But you guys watching this, you can click on that and you can download the indicator list. It's short and sweet, just a few bullet points. So you don't have to take notes right now. But like one is like you found out that your mom or dad left the stove on. They're cooking and they accidentally left the stove on. That's alarming because that could burn down the entire house. I mean, there's some other ones. Can you guys think of some other things that would be concerning, that would be indicators?
Forgetting where they were going when they're out driving around, forgetting how to get back home. They're going to appointments, but they're not paying attention to the days and times, and they can't keep track of the days and the times anymore. And then, of course, the one that we just recently talked about was the fall. Those are the primary indicators that I see a lot.
Yeah. the falls, those, but also see, and I think that I see, I don't, my mom doesn't have a memory problem, but we have another family member that does. But it took a while for everybody to kind of go, we think, we think something's going on there. Like it takes a while because you're not expecting it. Somebody who's had like the greatest, brain their entire life. And so you're not expecting this to happen. So it's almost it's not, they left the stove on. It's over the course of time, you're starting to recognize little signals, right? Is that what you guys have heard
Yeah,
from people?
absolutely. We talked, I think, in our first episode about the fall that changes everything. And
Mhm.
I've learned as I talk to families, there may be a fall, but as you learn the story, then they start to recognize, you know what? I noticed, as Nikki stated, that mom would go to her doctor's appointment and get confused and get turned around, or dad was making his famous dinner and the oven got left on all night. So there are these signs that maybe are there, but you don't really recognize them until that fall or something big happens, and then all of a sudden the pieces start to come together.
Yeah, and if you live far away, like you might not. So if you live in another state and mom and dad live in Florida, you might not know until you come for the holidays, or maybe you're coming for the summer, to visit while some kids are on break or something like that, that you open up the refrigerator and there's a ton of like expired food, or the house is a mess, like dirty, not just because they can't keep up with it anymore, or, that's when we start to notice some things. I think some people do.
Yeah. And that's part of, Allison, too. I think that's part of what, when you have these conversations with your family that might be uncomfortable, for the adult children, the Gen Xer, there's the guilt of it. I need to help my parents, but my schedule, there's just no way I can do it. And for the parents, there's the shame side of it. I perhaps recognize that some things are changing, but I'm embarrassed to say anything because I don't want to lose my house. And if I bring this up, everything changes. And
That
so I think if those conversations come early, then it's like, okay, if we get in this situation, what do we want to do? And then that helps to take away some of those strong emotions.
Yeah, and so Nikki, I mean, that lends itself to the importance of having some documents in place in advance, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's we had talked about in a previous episode last week about how there's different types of documents, whether they're springing documents where it's only upon incapacitation, or if they're immediate. That interim process where they are not confident that there's an issue going on. They're not seeking doctor approval. They're not going for their visits. They're insisting everything is fine. There's no problem, but there is mental deterioration. The children can't step in yet. That's the gray area. That's the problem area where that's the pride part, like Julie was talking about. They don't want to admit that there's a problem. And I've had numerous clients, more than I care to count. In fact, I just lost one 2 days ago that, it just, when that dementia sets in, and it's usually after one of them passes, the
Hmm.
one that has dementia, it just spirals downhill from there. And I really do believe in the you can die from a broken heart for sure. Because if they're not together, like it's very hard to keep the survivor going. And having those documents in place is such a lifesaver because it will allow the named agents to be able to step into place before things start spiraling out of control, to be able to intervene and be able to say, okay, let's go in for this appointment. If we can catch it soon enough, there are diet changes, there are medications, there are things that we can get them on ahead of time without going into like the medical world that can prevent things from getting too out of control. Because when it gets to that point, it's really hard. It's hard on the whole family. And understanding that the parents don't want to be an obligation to their children. They want to be independent because in their eyes, I gave birth to you. I raised you. I don't need you. I'm the one that's going to take care of you. Well, okay, well, now the roles are reversed. And, I joke around with my stepdad all the time and I say, you are my child. I didn't have children because I knew I was going to have to take care of you guys. But it's kind of like they do kind of age backwards. They get more forgetful. They get more dependent on you. So it's not intentional, but it's being able to have those conversations to say, like Julie mentioned, let's have them before we get to this point. What are your wishes? What are you wanting? And put those documents in place ahead of time, because when it gets to that too late point, documents cannot be formed.
Right. Yeah, and the parents of the Gen Xers, and I say Gen Xers, it can be a range of people. It doesn't have to be a Gen Xer, but I'm in a generation myself where I grew up without technology and with technology, right? But my mom, they didn't have any technology until, you know, she was well into her, 50s before like they even had a computer that I can
Mhm.
even think of. So they don't know how to navigate some of this stuff that they would have access to because, when we're getting to that point where we're thinking, and maybe they're starting to think, I don't think I can live alone, right? Like maybe and you're right, they don't want to burden us. So, but also, I asked my mom, like lots of times I said, Mom, why don't you just do a little search? It's simple to me. Do a little search online, see if there's some places you might like to check out. We can go check them out. She never did it. To me, that seemed like a very simple and very efficient way to kind of, screen out some of the places that she knew that she definitely didn't want to move to. But no, that didn't happen. So, I mean, the moment, talk about it with me. Tell me some of the other moments that they're realizing that they're not safe to live by themselves anymore, Julie.
So, some colleagues of mine in particular have mentioned, and I'm noticing this to be true, that after the holidays,
Mhm.
they get very busy. During the summer, start to get very busy because, as you mentioned, you've got adult children that maybe don't live in the same town, maybe don't live in the same state. They go to visit. Mom and dad can probably mask if they're trying to things over
Mm.
the phone, but when you get there in person, then you realize things are not as you thought, and we need to start having some of these conversations. What are some options? And while I help people find assisted living communities or senior living communities, there are other options. So there is home health options. Maybe there's caregiver options. So as soon as you notice that your parent needs help, it doesn't mean, okay, we got to pack everybody up, sell the house, and there are options where we can do this in phases. The parents really want to stay in their home and they can do it safely.
And if you do it in time, because I think for my in-laws, I don't think that they did not do it soon enough. And so they tried for a couple of months. So we didn't know what was happening because sometimes they keep that to themselves, right? So we didn't know that uh that my mother-in-law was having multiple falls. We didn't know there's several different members of the family. uh, there's several children, and so we didn't know. But then when we found out, then it seemed to go very quickly. But they did try to age in place by having home health care people come, and it would be ideal if it's kinda awkward though, as well. Like, it's nice to be in the house because it's your home, but you have somebody it's not like you see on television. They're literally just sitting, like, on your couch, like, 3 feet away from you for 10 hours.
And that's one thing to consider too is when you have these conversations is home health may be a great option. A caregiver outside of a medical home health may be a great option, but they're going to be there 3, 4 hours a day. What happens if you need help at 9 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
Um, that's some of the things that you need to take into consideration.
It's sorting all this stuff out, and Nikki, you try to help people so they're not scrambling at the last minute.
Yep, it's being proactive as much as possible.
Being proactive as much as possible. The care options. Julie, you said, you can try and age in place. You can have people come. You can do independent or assisted living or, memory care. Hopefully you don't need to go that route, but there's nothing you can do if you need to do that. And, also, nobody's even mentioning that. You did mention it at the beginning about like having mom and dad come to live with you, but if you have a house that has stairs and has different, like the bathrooms aren't fitted properly, you have to get it's expensive to get all that stuff
Yeah.
uh situated in the house. Like we looked at options like that for my in-laws, but it didn't make sense the way their house was, and then nobody could really have them live with them, but then also they didn't want to live with anybody. They
Yeah.
didn't want
And
to
it's
live with
hard.
the daughter who said, "Come live with me. I have plenty of room. We can make it work." Well, she's got little kids and they're like, "Yeah, no thanks. We love our grandchildren, but we don't want all that." So yes, these are
Yeah.
conversations that we have to have. And even having those conversations, even though they knew what they didn't want, they didn't know where they want it to go. But there's not a lot of, it's a very stressful period of time. And I think people just need to look at this before it gets too stressful, when you have the ability to make these decisions and do the research in advance. So you're not doing it at the last minute, at that moment in time that we discussed. I don't know.
Yeah.
Please tell me anything you guys want to add to all of this, because takeaways like that you guys can add.
I'll make a quick suggestion, and then Julie, you can definitely put in your point in perspective as well. But from the document perspective, yes, you always want to make sure that those documents are ready, because you need to be able to jump into play when that time comes. Because if they are looking for help and we do go to Julie and we say, okay, these are the facilities, and they're getting confused and they're not sure which route they need to go, that's where those power of attorney documents are going to come in handy, where the kids can step in and still give them assistance without taking away their rights and their privileges of being able to make decisions, but assist them in things, handling the nuances of filling out the paperwork, or making the phone calls, or following up with people, like that kind of stuff, where they can have their kids assist without saying, okay, no, you can't make any decisions for
Mhm.
yourself. But another thing is I know a lot of people think that we'll just have them come live with us. The coming from a personal standpoint, the amount of stress that that puts on you as an individual, while we think it's fine and we can handle it, it's not. It puts a whole different level of responsibility on you. So
Mhm.
people who are thinking that really need to make sure that they understand what they're doing, because it becomes a full-time job. You no more have your space, your time. It's hard, and you literally have to give up everything. So I encourage people to please give a lot of thought into things before they just take on that responsibility automatically, because it can be extremely hard and stressful on you.
Yeah.
Nikki, I think that's fabulous. I'm glad you're talking from a personal, you can tell this is a personal topic with you. One thing
Mhm.
we may talk about in the future is the role of a caregiver and what's involved in that. Because I think when this comes up, some children just automatically, especially if they're maybe the adult or they're the go getter, I can take care of it, we'll make it work. But you've got to stop and consider what all is involved in the I can make it work. The other thing
Mhm.
to consider is there's options. So when you recognize that this is a situation for your parents, let's think about options. There is the option of them living with you. There is the option of home health or a personal caregiver that could come and sit maybe with your family member. Then there's the option of senior living communities. And a lot of people, we talked about this before, but it's worth reiterating. When we talk senior living communities, that doesn't mean nursing home. Now, for some folks, they need skilled nursing, and that's what it is. But for many folks, a senior living community, whether it's independent, and we'll talk about this more in detail later, but independent basically means I'm going to come and go as I please, but I don't have to do yard work anymore. I don't have to do maintenance anymore. And somebody cooks 3 meals for me, but I have a kitchen in case I want to cook. Then
Right.
there's assisted living. If you need some help, it's the independence you want, come and go as you want, but with care when you need it. So it's the best of both worlds. Then there's memory care option for folks who find themselves in that situation. So the thing to remember in all this is you have options. You don't have to jump in and make a quick decision. That's the value of having that proactive conversation in advance. So when and if these situations happen, you know what path to take.
So, and these things are not free, right? Assisted living, independent living, memory care, they're not free. They vary depending on, the pricing structure varies depending on what you get. If you're living two people in a unit, if you're living, just one person in a unit, how much care in the assisted living, there's different levels. There's different scales of what they charge by, what they have to do. So I just know that from my own personal experience with my mother and my in-laws. And so then if people have to move out of their house, I mean, I could just see that people can be scared about the cost of all of this and how long it's going to last, right? Do they have the money to
Absolutely.
pay for this? So some of their decisions may be made based on what they can afford and not afford. Maybe they can only afford for mom and dad, or mom or dad, to come live with them because they can't afford to put them, they can't live somewhere else. They just simply can't afford it. But then you might have the asset of the family home that is so treasured. It's been their home for 40 or 50 years. And you have to decide, should we sell it, use it to help pay for their care, or do we rent it out because we are not sure? Mom and dad could live for a very long time, even if they go into assisted living, um, independent living. We just don't know. Tomorrow's not promised, but we just don't know how long that's going to be. So it can be stressful because you just don't know. But those are, I think next time when we come back, we're just going to talk about maybe getting more into the specifics of where somebody might consider going, and then also how to afford that. And also, we're going to talk about soon, by the way, scams that your aging parents should look out for, and so should you. And so make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you can come back and, so that you're notified and you can come back and you can keep watching as we do this series about Gen Xers helping their aging parents. Remember, all of our information is in the description below.